Checking into my floating hotel for the next few days. The vibes, immaculate. The luggage, lost. The dream, alive.
An influencer's logbook on the Titanic, or how I lost my blush and almost my life. I never should have posted that photo on Instagram. But how could I resist? The RMS Majestic. Yes, that was the ship's official name, at least according to my ticket. Loomed in the harbor like a palace out of a fairy tale, its decks gleaming under the afternoon sun. 4 funnels painted a yellow as flawless as my teeth after whitening. The ship of dreams, the poster declared, and I, Clara Montenegro, at Clara Lux Life, was about to embark on the adventure that would finally get me the 100K followers I deserved. My camera was already on before I even stepped onto the gangway. "Hey, lovelies," I said, spinning in slow motion to capture the entire ship behind me. "You won't believe where I am." That's right, I finally scored a spot on the most exclusive cruise of the century. Or at least it looks that way, huh? The trouble started before I even set foot on deck. "Sorry, Miss Montenegro," the check-in attendant said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Disappeared?" "Misplaced," he corrected, as if that were any better. "But don't worry, we have a courtesy wardrobe at your disposal." I should have recognized the first red flag when I opened my stateroom closet. Period dresses, long skirts, corsets. None of it matched my boho chic influencer aesthetic or the 21st century, to be honest. What the hell? My virtual assistant Lola popped up on my iPhone screen. "Clara, have you seen this? The Wi-Fi here is slower than dial-up. And check out this passenger list I found." She pulled up a blurry image of an old newspaper. Titanic, April 10th, 1912. "Lola, is this some kind of ship prank? Like one of those haunted hotel gimmicks?" Before she could answer, a voice behind me made my heart stop. "Miss Montenegro." I turned to find a tall man in an immaculate uniform holding a tray with a single champagne flute. "The captain sends his regards. He thought you might enjoy a welcome drink." The champagne was ice cold. Too cold. Nearly frozen. And when I took the glass, I noticed something strange. The liquid wasn't bubbling. At all. Like carbonated water pretending to be Veuve Clicquot. "Thanks," I said hesitantly, "but where are the other passengers?" He smiled. "Oh, they're around. You'll see them at dinner." He turned to leave but paused at the door. "Ah, and Miss Montenegro, it might be best not to film too much or post. The connections here can be unstable." When the door closed, I noticed the note tucked under the glass. "Enjoy every moment. You never know when it'll be your last." It was signed simply J.B. The logbook I found on my pillow, written in antique script, mentioning a special passenger arriving in 2023. The stateroom mirror that sometimes reflected an empty hallway instead of my room. The ship's clock's always reading 11:40, no matter how many times I checked. The fact that every attempt to post videos resulted in errors, except one, which showed 1.2 million views from accounts that didn't exist. I should have run right then. But, like any good influencer, I had content to create. And if that meant pretending not to notice the dozens of tiny details screaming, "This isn't right," then so be it. After all, what could possibly go wrong on a luxury cruise? Famous last words. I should have found it strange when the dinner invitation arrived on parchment paper sealed with red wax. But between wrestling my hair into submission with a vintage curling iron, which looked more like a medieval torture device, and deciding which of the period dresses made me look least like a Victorian housemaid, I ended up ignoring the signs. What followed was less a dinner and more a live episode of Black Mirror meets The Shining, with a dash of The Great Gatsby steering straight into an iceberg. The arrival, when glamour meets the macabre. The dining room was, well, terrifyingly magnificent. The tables, massive, polished mahogany, with silverware so shiny I could have used it as a mirror for lipstick touch-ups. The chandeliers, hanging like giant crystals, casting light patterns that slithered across the walls on their own, as if alive. The passengers? Yes, finally, the other guests. All impeccably dressed as if they'd stepped straight out of 1912, with smiles so perfect they looked painted on. "Miss Montenegro," a top-hatted maitre d' announced, "you'll be seated at the captain's table." Great. I love front row seats to potential murderers. The menu, 14 courses and a side of existential horror. The waiter, who introduced himself as Alfred, your humble servant, but had eyes that never blinked, handed me the menu, handwritten in such elaborate script I could barely decipher it. Appetizer, lost soul consommé, or was it pheasant consommé? The handwriting was ambiguous. Main course, filet mignon à la iceberg. Too on the nose or just too specific? Dessert, bombe glacée with a core of sunken secrets. It's when I saw the text that said lost soul consommé or pheasant consommé, the handwriting was ambiguous, that I knew I was in for a ride. "The wine, miss?" Alfred asked, holding up an unlabeled bottle with liquid so red it almost looked like, well, let's not go there. The guests, or why does everyone here look like an extra from the others? My table included Madame Petrovna, a Russian widow who smelt of lavender and tragedy. She examined my iPhone like it was an alien artifact. "What a fascinating device. How does it work? Electricity? Spirits?" Mr. Pembroke, an Englishman with a mustache so well-groomed it probably had its own valet. He spent the entire dinner muttering about the impending shift in tides and the price of arrogance. The Sinclair family, husband, wife, and 2 eerily quiet children, all dressed alike like porcelain dolls. The children didn't eat, they just stared. And then, of course, there was the captain. Captain JB, or why do all villains have initials for names? He arrived late, wrapped in an aura of charm and ominous intent. His appearance? Impeccable, like he'd stepped out of a portrait. Silver hair, military posture, eyes that felt like they were drilling into my soul. His first words, our special guest, at last. "You were expecting me," I laughed, trying to ignore how my hands trembled. "Everyone here was," he replied, pouring himself a glass of the unlabeled wine, "especially since 1912. The mirror incident, or when your reflection goes rogue. It was when I excused myself to freshen up, read, have a panic attack in the bathroom, that I saw it. The dining room's bathroom had a massive mirror, and my reflection didn't match my movements, wore a different dress, smiled when I wasn't smiling. And then she spoke. "You shouldn't have come." The final glass, or that's not champagne, is it? When I returned to the table, a new glass awaited. This time, the note read, "Drink. The past is sweeter when forgotten." Madame Petrovna leaned in, her lavender scent now laced with something older, like damp soil. "She's love an audience, dear, but take care not to become part of the performance. The end of dinner, or when you realize you're on the menu. The final course arrived, a ship-shaped dessert with whipped cream meant to resemble waves? Snow? I dared not ask. It was then that the captain raised his glass. "A toast," he declared, "to our special guest and the unforgettable night ahead." Everyone drank. I pretended to. And then, as if on cue, the dining room's clocks stopped, all frozen at exactly 11:40. Creepy details I ignored because #content. The waiters serving dishes in pristine white gloves. Too white, as if they'd never been worn before. The fact that none of the other passengers seemed to chew, they just placed food in their mouths and smiled. The orchestra playing Nearer My God to Thee on an endless loop, slower each time. My attempts to film everything resulting in videos where only I appeared, as if dining alone. Next steps, if I survive. Investigate who the hell JB really is, figure out why my reflection has a mind of its own, and try not to become the next specter of Deck D. Like and subscribe for updates if I don't vanish by tomorrow. I should have realized something was deeply wrong when the ship's activity guide included revitalizing hydrotherapy, location Deck F, bow section, night swimming lessons, period attire mandatory, stargazing session, astronomical observation, or seance. The brochure didn't specify. But as a good influencer in denial, I decided to treat it as an authentic experience. After all, how many people can say they've done cold plunge therapy on Titanic 2.0? The descent, when luxury turns into a Lovecraftian labyrinth. The elevator to the lower decks was a relic of brass and wood, its mirrors distorting my reflection in anatomically impossible ways. The F button was worn down, as if generations of passengers had tried and failed to reach it. "Deck F," announced the elevator operator, a short man whose uniform seemed fused to his skin. "Wellness area, or as we call it here, the purge." He laughed. I forced the smile. The elevator chimed with a sound that smelled like salt water and rust. When the doors opened, I was greeted by an endless corridor lit by emergency lights pulsing like a heartbeat, walls that breathed, or was that the AC? Spoiler, it wasn't the AC. A handwritten sign, spa, arrow, pointing to a door labeled Caution, Decompression Zone. Great, exactly the kind of signage that inspires confidence. The hydrotherapy, or how I lost my dignity and nearly my limbs. The pool was more like a flooded basement, its water so dark it could hide, and probably did, entire skeletons. The temperature, -1 degrees Celsius. In other words, perfect for involuntary cryotherapy. The instructor was a 7-foot-tall Swede named Bjorn? Or at least that's what I thought he said. His accent sounded like someone speaking through an underwater walkie-talkie. "First rule of cold plunge," he grunted, helping me out of my robe. "Don't scream. They hear." They who? His answer was to shove me into the water before I could react. Scientific discoveries during my 37 seconds of terror. It is possible to feel your blood turn to slush in your veins. My prayers sounded like, "Damn you, global warming, why didn't you come sooner?" Something scaly brushed between my legs. I'm choosing to believe it was just a floating towel. When I surfaced, gasping, Bjorn was different. His eyes now completely black, his uniform inexplicably dry, his smile showing too many teeth. "Good job," he said, pulling me out. "You lasted longer than the last group." Group? The third-class passengers. They usually pass out by minute 2. The Mirror Incident, Part 2, The Return of the Traitorous Reflection. In the changing room, while trying to regain feeling in my toes, I noticed my reflection out of sync again, now wearing a vintage striped swimsuit. A message written in the mirror's condensation. Run. My back open, my iPhone displaying 1,987,543 notifications from an app I didn't know about. Titanic. Passenger tracker? Then I heard a muffled scream from the hallway, rhythmic knocking inside the walls like someone hammering from within. The ship's intercom crackling. "Attention, Deck F. Remember, there aren't enough lifeboats for everyone. Enjoy yourselves." The stairway to hell, literally. My epic escape included tripping over a rug that moved on its own, finding a service staircase with steps that seemed to breathe, being followed by footsteps that echoed 3 seconds behind mine, no matter how fast I ran. At the top, an ironically intact sign, "Welcome to Deck A, where dreams become reality." The encounter with crewman number 13. He stood in the empty hallway, uniform pristine, eyes hollow. "Miss Montenegro," he said, without moving his lips. "You shouldn't be here." "I've been told," I panted, still dripping. "Let's cut to the chase. Are you ghosts, time travelers, a prank for one of those hidden camera shows?" He tilted his head at an impossible angle. "We are memories, and you are the entertainment." When I blinked, he was gone. In his place, a puddle of salt water, a yellowed note, "Dinner at 8, period attire required, bring your own light." My iPhone now showing a single notification, 1 day remaining. Details I ignored, because the human mind has limits. Every faucet in the changing room leaked black water. The lights flickered in Morse code, SOS on repeat. My passenger bracelet now displayed a different number, 1,313. Next steps, if the ghosts allow it. Investigate the passenger tracker because, sure, I'll trust a ghost app. Find Madame Petrovna, she knows more than she admits. Try not to become the next act in this entertainment they keep mentioning. Like and subscribe for updates if my signal doesn't vanish mid-Atlantic. I woke to the sound of scratching at my cabin door. Not ordinary scratching, rhythmic, methodical, like someone trying to write a message in code. When I approached, an envelope slid beneath the door. The paper was damp and smelled of aged seawater. Inside, only 3 items. A faded photo of an unknown passenger with my face superimposed over his. A boarding pass dated April 10th, 1912. And a rusted key inscribed, "Wireless room, crew only." My iPhone chose that exact moment to wake on its own, displaying a notification from the Titanic passenger tracker. "Good morning, passenger 1313. Today is April 14. Recommended activities: avoid mirrors, do not answer when called by name, visit the radio room before sunset. The search for truth, or how to pretend you're not terrified for content." I decided I needed answers, and frankly, if I was going to die on this ghost ship, I might as well go out with great engagement. My first stop was the ship's library, a cavernous hall with shelves that seemed to stretch forever. The books had disturbing titles: How to Survive When You're Already Dead, Sailing Through Centuries, A Guide for Passengers Lost in Time, 101 Ways to Say Goodbye When Your Ship is Sinking. That's when I found the diary. Tucked behind a first edition of The Interpretation of Dreams, Cruel Irony, a small leather-bound notebook bore the initials J.B. Its pages were filled with sketches of a ship identical to ours, but with eerie differences. A modern dressed woman circled in red, arrows pointing to deck areas marked portals. The phrase, "She is the key," repeated on every page. The deck encounter, or when the dead drop spoilers. As I left the library, I nearly collided with Madame Petrovna. She looked different, more solid, more real than the other passengers. "You found the diary," she stated, not asked. "He wrote about you before you were even born, you know." "Who is JB?" I pressed. She smiled, revealing teeth that were just a little too sharp. "John Jacob Astor IV, the richest man aboard, the first to see the iceberg, the last to accept his fate." Before I could process this, she pulled me into a shadowed corner. "Listen well, girl. You are not a passenger. You are passage. They want your light to escape." "My light?" "Your time, your era, your connection to the living world." She pointed at my iPhone. "That device is what binds them here, and what could free them." The wireless room, or SOS to the wrong century. Finding the room was easier than expected. The key glowed when I neared the right locations, like some macabre point-and-click adventure game. Inside, the radio equipment was impeccably preserved and active. Messages poured in non-stop. "COD, iceberg ahead, stop immediately." "COD, watertight compartments flooding." "COD, send help at once." But the most chilling was half-finished, as if the operator had been interrupted. "COD, they are here, not passa." Then I realized my iPhone was transmitting on its own, a looping Morse code message to a number that no longer existed. "We are on board the Titanic. We should not be here. Please find us." The first scream, or when you realize you're not alone. The noise came from the deck. I rushed to the window and saw passengers running in slow motion, crewmen lowering lifeboats that weren't there, and worst of all, shadowy figures pulling people into the darkness. But the true horror came when I looked at the sea. There it was, the iceberg, glowing under the moonlight like a monument to human arrogance. My iPhone buzzed with a final alert. "Final warning, 1 hour remaining. Find the captain. He knows how you got here." Details I refuse to accept, but can't ignore. All my photos show passengers different from the ones I see. My cabin number changes every time I blink. Sometimes, in the window reflections, I see the ship already sinking. Next steps, if time allows. Find the captain and pray he doesn't want to sacrifice me. Figure out how my iPhone became a paranormal artifact. Try not to become another statistic in maritime history's greatest disaster. Like for courage, comment if you experience this, and subscribe if I survive to post the next chapter. I should have known nothing on this ship was accidental. The deck was in chaos when I arrived. Ghostly passengers running in slow motion, crewmen with melted faces trying to lower lifeboats that were already rotted, children crying without sound. And at the center of it all, Captain JB, standing at the bow like he was posing for a painting. "Miss Montenegro," he said, without turning. You've arrived just in time for the grand finale. My iPhone, now possessed by some intelligence from another century, projected a red countdown. 005923. The truth, or something close to it. The captain finally turned. His eyes were two chunks of coal, reflecting flames that didn't exist. You're not a passenger. You're a passage, a portal between times, the last tether keeping us here. Is this because of my Instagram? I asked, because even at the end of the world, personal branding matters. He laughed, and the sound echoed like an underwater bell. Your device is what called us. So many lost souls, so many untold stories. And you chattering into the void, liking other people's memories. The ship of dreams feeds on dreams, Clara, and you are a feast. The plan, or a desperate attempt to go viral. As the deck began to tilt, yes, now it decides to sink for real. I had an epiphany. If the Titanic wanted content, I'd give it the greatest content in history. I opened Instagram Live with trembling hands. Hey guys, I'm on the Titanic. Yes, that one, and you won't believe this. What followed was 1. A sinking ship tour, complete with pointing out famous ghosts. Look, it's Jack. Wait, no, that's just a guy who looks like him. 2. A quick interview with the captain. How does it feel to be a famous ghost? Can you monetize on YouTube? 3. An unboxing of the last lifeboat. Check this out, guys. Single seat, no lines, super exclusive. The engagement was insane. 500K views in minutes. Then my iPhone burned in my hands. Messages flooded in. At Maria Santos, Clara, get out of there. At Carlos92, is this even edited? At Spiritism Official, you're in limbo, pray now. And then, ding! A notification from the cursed app. Titanic passenger tracker. Connection established. Transmission initiated. The ghosts froze. The ship shuddered, and the captain screamed something in a language that no longer existed. What have you done? I said, holding up my phone like a crucifix. I made you go viral. Now the whole world knows you exist. Congrats, Captain. You're a trending topic. The last thing I saw before waking up in a Miami hospital was Captain JB disintegrating into pixels like a badly rendered effect, Madame Petrovna waving, her dress dissolving into digital dust, and my iPhone exploding in white light with one final message. Thank you for setting us free. Like and subscribe for more. 2 weeks later, my story made the New York Times. Influencer vanishes, reappears with Titanic tale. I gained 1.2 million followers. Thanks, algorithm. The government confiscated my devices for national security reasons. But the worst part. Yesterday, opening my new iPhone, I got a notification. Titanic passenger tracker. Update available. Next voyage in 365 days. And in my bathroom mirror, for just a second, I swear I saw a sailor's uniform behind me. Like and subscribe for the next adventure, if I'm dumb enough to board again. If you find a message in a bottle that says, "Help, I'm stuck in the ship's Wi-Fi," please don't click the link. I learned the hard way.